classes on gate valves. They've been to safety classes, but repairing a water main break, I'm not sure if there is a class like that, because each water main break is an individual issue, whether it's a split, a blowout, a corporation that's blown out, or if it's a service leak. They're all different.
Well, being my background is law enforcement, I don't,
Right.
I don't know this.
And I understand that.
I would think that in plumbing and things that what we're talking about is relatively common. And I would think that there would be training that would be out there. So I would ask you to, I mean, for the benefit of the people that are
Now,
coming in.
I
cold, that
I have seen
Please,
plumbing
for the
classes, yes.
benefit of those that are out there that are going in for the team leaders and such, I mean, I would recommend that you would research that and see. Because I'm interested to know if they would have that, I'm sure, because these events happen all over the country, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. All right, sir, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the,
Can I ask a question while he's here?
yes.
Can you tell me, you send a crew out on a mission, all right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me from the time you get the call to the time, break it down to how they go about it. Can you do that for me?
Whether it's a call out during the day or at night.
Right.
Do you want to go with night or you want to go with day?
At night, so that
Right.
we,
If it's a water main break, usually we'll receive a call from the police department. And that'll go through what we call a standby person. That's a person that is on call 7 days a week. After work, that individual takes a city vehicle home and what I want to call an emergency cell phone. The police department calls that person out. That person goes out and looks at the conditions of it.
yeah, now, the person that gets called out, is that a leader? Is that a?
No, that's just a water department person.
Okay.
And what they will do is they'll go out and they will assess how bad of a water main break is it. Can it wait until morning? Does it have to be done right then and there because of the volume or how bad the break is? Is it cold out? Is it creating ice? Or is it going right into a catch basin where it isn't creating a flooding issue? And either of those situations, if it's one that, let's say, can maybe wait until the morning, typically they will also call Ms. Dig, because we have to call Ms. Dig before we do any digging. That way, the Ms. Dig marking hopefully is there by the time we get there. If it's one that has to be done immediately just because of the volume or because of the icing conditions or the road when they get there is totally flooded, then they'll typically, in either case, more so the worst, they'll call the superintendent and say, you know what, this thing is really bad. We actually need to do something right away. He'll start to make the calls to get the inbound manpower.
Answer your questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question through the chair for John while he's up there.
Yes, sir,
Unless
go ahead.
we're all done. I mean, John, why don't you give us a little history? Why don't we talk about how DPS was set up to begin with? Let's go back, not too many, let's go back underneath the emergency manager, 2012, 2013. We had a lot more people, obviously, even underneath the emergency manager, I think, for a while. But the structure, I mean, the reason you have a supervisor to come in is because what? Safety issues, or they can authorize overtime, or they have the power of, because they're a supervisor, they can interact with the other departments, or?
It's actually all of that. It's a combination.
Okay.
And again, as I said a couple of minutes ago, when you get out on a water main breaks they're all non-typical. They're all different. And that superintendent usually has more experience, and they'll say, all right, we need to do it this way, or we need to do it that way. The other thing is, if we find that we don't have an appropriate clamp, because maybe we've just run out of that particular size clamp. He also has a lot of the phone numbers of neighboring communities wherein he will call at any time of the night to borrow a clamp, to get a clamp from a neighboring community. And generally, if he doesn't go to retrieve that clamp, then he'll send somebody to retrieve it, while the rest of the crew is starting to break concrete or locate the break in it of itself.
My question to begin with was, though, originally there were more supervisors for the crews, though. I mean, way back when, the city, in their infinite wisdom, decided to have supervisors to handle each crew to a certain extent. Am I correct?
Well, let me back up. When I came,
Just a little hit, just brief history. I want a long history, but we used to have.
I came in here just shy of 10 years ago.
Okay.
And at that point in time, there were 2 superintendents
Okay.
and a director. And each of the department had a crew leader, and we also had what we call a super crew leader. And through the process, and again, that was 28 people, plus part-timers. Now, we went down to 5 people because of attrition. And during those 5 people, we had 2 part-timers. Now we've been building back up. And right now, I think in the budget, there's, I believe, 22 full-timers and 3 part-timers scheduled. Well, when I say part-timers, I mean actually for the DPS workforce. I'm not, in that case, I'm not talking about the part-time mechanic, and I'm not talking about Leroy, who is actually in the audience, who will take care of opening up and closing up the parks.
Through the chair, if I might, your supervisor who comes in also does the overtime, right? He would make sure that the employees get paid for the time they're on the job, because he'd be there with them. Like,
Oh, yes, he
to make
he
sure that
approves the
they're-
overtime, yes,
He approves the
sir.
overtime, and if he needed to get something, I guess what I'm saying, he acts as a management liaison, basically. I mean, that's what he's there for. He's the a member of management.
Yes.
Okay.
And if,
On all call-outs, he's there as a,
well, for the
just to verify the overtime?
No, not just for that, but sometimes, depending on what the call-out may be, not everybody has an access code to get into our building for the alarm system. He'll come in for stuff like that. Some items, such as more recently at the court, we've got it.
Forgive me, but if somebody is going to be called in and has potential for that, wouldn't they be given that code for the alarm?
No, not if we've got the superintendent coming in, but there's also usually somebody on each one of those crews that has an access code. Our leaders have that access code.
Okay, continue with your response.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just wondering, I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting that the city would pay all that money, and then now we're down to, I mean, the city is not throwing their money away. There was a structure here for a long time. And through attrition, that's why I wanted you to discuss that. Through attrition and forced money problems, we reduced the amount of management people and employees in the department to get down where we're at. And the reason I ask that is because where I come from, we did similar work, and the management person was brought in for a lot of reasons, for safety reasons, in case somebody got hurt in a job, because the first thing the lawyer would say, where's the management person? How'd they get hurt? Who's watching them? Because when you work, you're working by yourself, right? There's no other people like, how can I say this? If you're out in one part of the city and you're doing a water main, basically that crew is out there. There's nobody else with them. That's just the crew that's working there, right?
That's correct. And on occasion, when I was a superintendent, we did have simultaneously had water main breaks and snow events where with a crew, we were out doing a water main break, and I had to call in a snow removal crew. So you've got 2 items going. Now, I don't know about the police department staffing, but because you're more familiar with it than I am, I don't know what kind of manpower there may be underneath the sergeant. But I know right now, we've got one singular superintendent trying to have oversight of multiple functioning crews.
With team leaders underneath for each of the departments.
Yes.
Right.
And with them,
Wasn't the structure set up so that these individuals in charge of the departments could lead on these call-ins? Isn't that why the team leader position was created?
for a call-out, or are you talking about just leading out in the field? Because right now, as I said a few minutes,
Field or
Yeah.
or a call-out.
like I said a few minutes ago, a lot of these people are very green.
Well, I understand that. I'm going for how the position, when it was created, what was the intent with this?
When it was created, I would assume that it was created so that they could lead that group of men.
Well, in your discussions with the city manager, as you were talking about these positions over the years, is that what the intent was?
By all means, that is correct. And again, like I said, with them being pretty green, you just don't pick them out.
Well, I could
They're-
understand that.
They're in training, yes.
And that's why the next person up could be available for a call. If the person that is green comes across something that they were not aware of, they could then call in for backup, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Through the chair, while we're going down this line, I think it's a good point. When a leader comes in, does he have the authorization to discipline or direct the crew? In other words, if somebody's doing something that's not right, can he send them home and say, I want you off the job because you're working illegally? Or unsafely, not illegally, unsafe. Because again, this is a small crew, and stuff does happen, and people come in off the, off their personal time, because it's a call-in you're talking about. We're talking about call-ins now.
I don't have a recollection of that happening,
Okay.
but I know while I have been there, we've had disagreements amongst the workforce, but they've always re-gelled and gotten the job done. Typically, I don't think, because they come from the
Somebody
same,
came onto the job when that person was working unfit to work, the team leader would have the necessary tools in order to make sure that that person is either sent home, right, or correct, or call somebody in to deal with that incident. Isn't that the way that it would work with that?
yes, sir.
Okay. So let's get far up the field for this. Thank you, sir. I'm going to open it up to other council.
I got some questions for him.
I wasn't quite done, but I'll wait my turn.
Hold
Go
on
ahead.
for just a second.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
What I see as one of the major problems is we currently expect the superintendent and the division leader, the second in line, to work so many excessive hours. I mean, it is just, they can't do anything, out there in the field unless someone is called in to supervise or whatever. Years back, as he said before, I really think my viewpoint of the whole thing is I think we need to go to his first proposal, no, the second proposal, where we have the director and then we have two supervisors underneath them. So they would be splitting the overtime, the mini hours, the call-in or whatever. And that way, at least, it relieves the superintendent, the director, of some of his hours that he would be putting in, and it would split the responsibilities to where someone doesn't have to work day and night, 80 hours a week, on all these call-ins and everything, because it just doesn't seem, it's not fair. We don't pay good enough for someone to have no life outside of the city. They're at work all of the time, morning, noon, and night, calls all night. So I really think, my opinion, is if we went back to where if we had the two supervisors under the director, at least they would split that work. And depending on what the problem is, that would depend on who's going to be contacted.
With them being cross-trained?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Because now on the first proposal, what the city manager has provided us, the deputy director, have an engineering degree. We have an engineer. I don't think we need to have someone with an engineering degree. And in the instance that we did have someone, this pay is ridiculous or whatever for someone that has an engineering degree. So I think just to get us over this hump or whatever, if we created the two supervisors directly under John, that would relieve him of some of the duties, hours, and also this person that is there now. You know, it would split the work and there wouldn't be as much overtime.
Dating back 15 years ago, they had, I mean, there was always the director, and then there was
And then
two
they-
underneath. And
yes.
then for a period of time, they created, one of the positions was an engineer. I think it was Gary Meacham
Yeah.
or something at
Yeah.
that particular point.
Right, right.
But you know, I would agree with you that the other two positions are needed underneath the
For
director.
the hours of work, just for the.
But as, I'm just,
Mandated.
that the team leader should have a bigger part of it also. But next was Tom.
Thank you. John, back in the day, it was 5 supervisors watching over that department, one for each department. As far as going to water main school, it's absurd. All water mains are different. You can come in and you can teach a man how to put on a clamp, how to cut a main, how to put solid sleeves on, how to repair a water service. That's trainable. But if to each individual call that you have, I've seen calls regularly take me 45 minutes because it was all blown out and all clean. And I've seen it where it's lasted, what, a couple of days? There's nothing that can train you for this. It's all experience.
I don't want to get into an argument, but with
I'm
this,
just-
but I can just say that the same thing goes with police work, and the same thing goes with fire work, and all of those things is that you're given the base core going in, and then you go in and you tackle the problem. Yes, experience helps, and there are things that only experience will teach you, but there has to be a way to train in the basics of how to get this done.
They're training every day that they're there.
But, yeah, but there has to be, whether it would be a school of some nature. I mean, this is plumbing and putting things back together, right? I mean, wouldn't there be training available for that?
I don't believe so. You can go to plumbing school, you can learn how to put pipes together and how to solder joints, but it has nothing to do with installing water mains and fixing fire hydrants. That's a whole separate entity.
Okay, that's a whole nother discussion, right?
Oh, yeah, well, if you take a day off and you go down there and watch them work, you try to work with them for a day, and you might understand it a little bit more.
Folks,
You got another question?
The engineering degree, I agree with Donna, that's not, there's no way. Now, we have an S1 operator license now. The state says we have to have a S1 operator's license. That's the president supervisor over at the DPS, and he has all kinds of experience to take care of these problems. Because you can go out and, I've had guys fall in a hole because they weren't trained enough to know, take a rod and feel in front of you, make sure there's not a hole in the concrete. That's just one simple thing. It's just years of experience. I mean, I spent a lot of times in the water department. I was in there for about probably 10 years. And they learn something new every single day. If you think it's an easy job with all the hours overtime, they do everything. They do trees, they do plowing, they do water, they do sewer. You're multi-talented, so you not only train for water mains, you're trained for everything.
yeah, I understand that. That's not,
It's multi-talented. So you sitting here, well, can't they go to plumbing school? Why don't they go to tree school? Why don't they go to sewer school?
you're talking about putting together water mains. I'm just saying that somewhere, someplace in the state and for each city, there's going to be training that's for that.
Yeah, they come in and they show you how to put a
Folks that
clamp
tell
on.
me that they don't know of it or that they don't think that it exists is, oh, it's just crazy to me.
They will come out and show you-
Very well may be the case, but I don't want this to be what we're dwelling
Well,
on here.
I
Right
learned-
now,
I-
right now, we're going to, and we're focusing on what the proposals are with this and how we're going to move forward, whether we're going to take no action or whether we're going to look towards creating a new position, back to the old
Those
position.
three proposals, there's something we can use in every one, but I think he should be put in a management unit, which is, he's in a secretary unit now. And what's next? He gonna wear a skirt on Friday? I mean, he needs to be put in a management unit to where he's protected to take care of these people. He needs, I looked it up, and the man in his position is usually $55,000 to $60,000 a year. So if you give him a super leader that can take care of the simple stuff while he's off.
We're not talking individuals here. We are talking about the supervisory positions of the DPS, not individuals here.
I'm
Now, what you're
talking about,
What you're talking about is at the end, in which you're taking somebody out of a current position where there are, and then putting them into another one, which could be construed as a unfair labor practice by the bargaining teams. And we do not want to open ourselves up
Well,
for that.
when I was there, we were in a Forms Association, and we were under the DPS. Now, he's under the secretary unit. It's not, it's City Hall. It's not down there for DPS. It's
That's
so
the way that it was
ridiculous.
set up, sir?
Yeah, it wasn't set up when I was there. Whoever's been
thank
dealing
you.
with the contracts, it's really got screwed up.
Okay, we're moving on.
Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I have some questions. John, if you want to stand back up, please. I did see Mr. Logan's letter. I was disappointed also in 365 days a week you're on call, whether you're on vacation or personal leave or you're in Hawaii. I don't know how that ever came about. But anyway, Mr. Logan, did you ever get a response from the city manager in regards to that letter and maybe trying to work something out?
I would ask that the city manager answer that. I don't know.
Councilman, this is about the supervisory positions. This is not about anything to do with one individual here. And
Mr.
that's-
Logan is the supervisor?
Yes, but it's about the position that we're talking about here.
I'll redirect my question then. You have 6 part-time openings still available, right?
I believe that's down to 3 because I believe toward the latter part of the budget process, and Mr. Koppler could probably better inform us, but I think some of those part-timers were traded in for full-time.
Did we ever fill the one full-time position that you're aware of?
To my knowledge, I believe we still have 2 full-time positions open.
Oh, okay. So what I'm getting at, and I did see the 3 proposals, I don't know if we're thinking out of the box, just if for personal or, how should I say this, for the lack of a better term, if Mr. Logan, with his knowledge, if he trains somebody, we'll eliminate 3 part-time positions, right? Someone that can fill him, I've been to the detention center in Ecorse at Lincoln Park, it looks like the Bat Cave, 1,000 buttons everywhere, that's a lot, that's demanding. I wouldn't want that on anybody. And if you're out of town, I don't know how you're gonna deal with that. If he could train somebody, right, I don't know if it's gonna affect the bargaining unit or not, we can come up with a position, but if we had 2 people in his position, one could go away and fulfill his other duties, right? I don't know if we've looked at that. If there ever comes a class for water main breaks, let me know, because I've never heard of one either. But that's something to look at. I know your staff is young and they're green, and they learn from experience mostly. I understand that. So my stance is, I like what Donna Breen was saying, that's too much for one supervisor. So if, my last question, well, I'll ask Mr. Koppler again, I don't know if I may be out of order. Have you discussed a resolution with Mr. Logan at all, maybe trying to keep him
A lot
on
of
board?
those issues are bargaining unit issues, and so for me to sit down and discuss those and try to negotiate those would be an unfair labor practice. Those would have to go through his unit representative, and then we could set up a meeting and discuss it that way, but I can't direct deal with any employee.
All right. That's all I have, Your Honor, at this point.
Yes, we haven't heard from you, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too agree with Council President. I like the idea of having the 2 supervisors. I think the whole purpose of this is that we're looking to rebuild the department. We want a department for the future. And we're having problems with water main breaks, it seems like, every time you turn around. So we need to be staffed in order to take care of that. And the other issues, of course, that come along. So we need to work on getting our positions filled. And I just want to say that I'm hoping that what we're doing is building positions that will build careers for the people that are holding these positions, because we want people to stay. That's it.
Through the chair.
Thank you. Yes, sir, go ahead.
To add to what Councilwoman Ross was saying, is not only do we have the day-to-day operations right now, all the emergencies, everything else, there's sort of an unfunded thing about replacing all lead water services in town. So that's gonna be added right on top of his, how do you replace water service? I don't know, you ever go to water service school?
Well, sir, in just in 30 seconds and Googling, we have water main and service line maintenance repair, the leaks in municipalities, and it offers various trainings on that. So the base stuff does exist. I mean, it is out there. Whether that will be applicable to our city and the people that work in it, I don't know. But there is some training that is available for it. It isn't as ridiculous as it sounds.
So, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
If I could add to that, then,
Go ahead.
can we have like a budget for training for them?
I believe there is a training
There
budget.
is, there is
There's a training budget?
training
Okay.
budget, yes.
Okay.
And we utilize that.
Okay.
Okay, very good. We've heard, I would go along with the need of going back to, what we had before with the director and, 2 supervisors underneath. Is there anyone else that has, council would like to speak on that?
Yeah, I would like to, when I was on the council before, we did have 2 supervisors, and it worked, it was a better flow. And as the department grows, it's obvious we need to have that again. But before we jump into that, I would like the recommendation of the guy who's leading the department right now, is where you would like to see this work, and how do you think it would work? Because and what you're saying is absolutely right. These guys have not only got to know how to do water mains. I know I work in maintenance, and you got to be a jack of all trades. You got to be able to work on this one day and that next day, and figure it out as you go. But at the top where the maintenance is, the supervising, breaking it down to the way that the superintendent, with the manager's suggesting. Is that something that you see working again in the department, or is there something else that you would like to see? And I'm going to put you on the hot seat and ask you that.
Would it be possible that I give you my opinion and not be turned off?
Yes.
Through the chair?
I'm asking you for. I want to hear your opinion.
All right. First, I'd like to go back to the mayor pro tem. I, too, am an engineer. So I didn't want to,
I know that. I'm sorry, I apologize.
but I didn't know if you knew it or not.
Yes, I'm sorry.
What I see for the city is not getting any younger. This infrastructure is not getting any younger. And the short 10 years that I've been here, actually under the present city manager, he's done the most for infrastructure, actually far more than other city managers that I've worked for. So to me, my hat's off to him for that, because usually city managers turn a blind eye. It's not seen, we're not going to spend money on it. But staffing is, as the system gets older, because I, along with yourself, have heard Mr. Parkinson say back in his era, they had just a ginormous number of people. That was also when the infrastructure was younger, including the roads, the sanitary, the pump stations, the water system, all of that. It's significantly older. Presently, one superintendent, I've got one sitting in the audience that left that position because he had no life after the 8 to 3, or the 7:30 to 3:30 Monday through Friday work event or work day. And he can speak for himself, but that's why he left that position to go back into the rank and files. The other present came here because I asked him to come here. He and I worked in another location. He's got all kinds of experience in this field, and in the sanitary field, and in the road field. I asked him to come in to be a tutor and to help make this a better department. Now the problem is it's getting into his family life because he is putting so much overtime. Again, whether the city has the ability to keep that person or not, let's assume the answer is not. How does the city anticipate replacing that body? And again, since you've asked me for my opinion, I don't think you're going to find somebody that'll put in that type of time with those type of credentials at the dollar amount that the city wants to pay. But again, that's my opinion. If you split it up into two, as it was when I started here, it does make it easier. But then that fell apart in the latter part of that second superintendent's career here. And it came down to one point in time, we got my wife and I, we got 8 houses away. Phone rang. Took the call, you might as well take me home. I got a water main break. Another time, 8 miles away, same thing. I don't think people like our present superintendent or myself are as dedicated as the mold that we came from. I just don't know how the city will fulfill those work boots if we lose them. And if we're going to recruit somebody that has the same credentials, why lose that present person we have? And the other part to that is, I know we haven't had any luck securing part-timers. We haven't had any luck securing 2 full-timers. What makes us think we're going to be able to just walk out to the local Kmart and pick a superintendent off the bookshelf? I don't think it'll happen. Then who's going to maintain the ship? That's my personal opinion.
So of all to focus on the question again, what would you, of the options that have been presented, would you like to have an additional supervisor? Would you like to remain at the current thing that you have? Or would you like to see an additional engineer brought in?
I think it would be best if the city had 2 superintendents. That way, you don't draw on just one body all the time. Maybe they could split it up every other week, every 2 weeks, once a month. I think they've got to have that, especially if they're married and or have kids, because they've got to have some sort of family life also. So I think the city should have 2 superintendents.
Could I ask one
Thank you.
question of
Yes,
John?
sir, go ahead.
I just want to know, John, under your current staffing, if we decide to have 2 supervisors down there under you, are you confident that you probably could promote from within, or would you have to go out? I'll put you on the spot.
I've got a good answer, but it's not it won't work because I can't explain because of a HIPAA rule or HIPAA law. But the Mr. Rail, I've talked to him, he doesn't want to go back there to what he just left, and I understand that. There's another individual, but the problem is he will be leaving shortly.
Maybe I
Through-
shouldn't have asked that question. I was just curious. I mean, of the staff you have, when you said you'd have to go to Kmart and find someone to do it, I was hoping that there's someone internally that could take up part of this responsibility.
Everybody else is very green, and I would like to have some thinking time on it.
Okay, is there anything for, more from council?
I got a
In reference
question.
to- Yeah.
On this second proposal, you do know if we go this way, we're giving up 2 full-time laborers.
No, we're just creating
No.
these jobs.
No,
Isn't that what it says here?
No, I'm saying,
I would think that is the potential that was put in, and that's what,
Okay.
not the decision. It's
All right.
how, I think he was trying to figure out how it would least affect the budget.
Okay, all right, that's what kind of bothered me.
Oh, I
I just.
wasn't-
That would
Okay, well,
ultimately
that's
be
what I'm
your
asking.
decision, how you wanted to do that, if you wanted to
Okay.
go with, paying for it within the budget, or if you wanted to go outside the budget. That's.
Okay,
what that
I
was
didn't,
for.
I just read what I read and read what I pass, and that's what it says. So
I
nobody
wouldn't-
put the X's, and, well,
wouldn't
through the
be-
chair, that's why I ask.
I wouldn't be in favor of shortening the
Yeah.
manpower any additional.
Okay.
Correct. Me too.
All right.
Mayor, if I could I have a little bit of freedom to discuss another topic that is not a superintendent issue?
Well, not at this time, sir. This is the reason why we're here, is to discuss this. That's the topic of the study session that we're having. So if it relates to any of these positions here, if you have advice,
Those three positions, no.
okay.
But a situation at the DPS, yes.
Well, that's not what we're discussing right now, sir. I'm sorry.
Does it
That's
have
not
to do
the-
with
the
manpower?
purpose.
Yes, sir.
I think if we're talking about manpower, that has pertained to this issue.
We're not talking about manpower right now, sir. We are talking about the supervisory options for the DPS. Thank you. Is there anything further from council for that?
Yeah, question to the chair.
Yeah.
When you negotiate this new position, are you gonna, obviously you have to open up the contract, because you gotta open up a new position, am I correct? I mean, that's not confidential, that's just what you got,
Well,
you know?
not so much.
Or is there a position in there for the,
Well, there's a position, so we wouldn't be opening up the contract for
Okay.
creating the position.
Okay.
But if we follow through with the increase in the pay, that would be open.
okay, that's where I was going. Okay, you answered my question then, all right. Thank you.
Anything further from council?
Not on this issue, Your Honor.
Okay, then, just the study session will be adjourned. We don't need a motion, right? We'll be
Sir.
adjourned at 7:19.